Welcome to the presentation of the 5th Annual Women's Rights Prize, honoring courageous individuals and groups who have made significant contributions to human rights that advance the rights of women and girls around the world, and to the symposium that will follow the ceremony. We are delighted to be here at New York University School of Law for these events, a distinguished teaching and research institution with a strong reputation in support of human rights. I am pleased to introduce our host here at NYU, Dean Richard Rivez, the Dean of the New York University School of Law. Dean Rivez has been a member of the NYU faculty since 1985 and has served as Dean since June of 2002. He is an expert in the fields of environmental and regulatory law and policy. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Rivez.
Thank you so much and welcome. I'm really privileged to participate today in the presentation of the 2007 Women's Rights Prize of the Peter and Patricia Gruber Foundation. I'm also honored to stand here in the company of formidable leaders in the area of human rights. Your work exemplifies the things that we value the most here at NYU Law School, and that's why I'm so pleased that you came here to our professional home to have this great event. Here at the law school, we have a very extensive international human rights clinic that's paving the way for providing examples for other law schools on how to deal with these very important areas. My colleague who runs our international human rights program also serves as the special rapporteur to the UN Secretary General on extrajudicial executions, Professor Philip Austin, who is originally from Australia. We have a very strong program on transitional justice, which we've designed in partnership with the International Center for Transitional Justice. It was established by Alex Bahrain when he had finished serving as the vice chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, working under Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So your goal today and our intellectual goals are very much in sync, and so it makes a lot of sense for you to be here. I'm very pleased that you are here. And I'm particularly want to express my appreciation and admiration to this year's Gruber Prize recipient, Pinal Ilkarajan. Her achievements reflect the kind of leadership that shows daring, a capacity for seminal thinking, and a refusal to take the easy road of acquiescence. You will hear about others about her great accomplishment. My job is to talk briefly about the award she receives here today. In creating the Women's Rights Prize, the Peter and Patricia Gruber Foundation is in the vanguard of leaders who promote human and civil rights around the world and who work to protect the dignity, humanity, and autonomy of all human beings across gender, color, religion, nationality, and ethnicity. Those selected as candidates for this award are the inspired elite among women who have the strength, courage, and determination to leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of a just society. The Gruber Foundation's Women's Rights Prize honors today's women warriors who are an inspiration to all of us. I would like to thank them for convening the symposium here and for conferring the 2007 Women's Rights Prize at NYU Law School. And once again, thank you to our 2007 laureate for all of your achievements and for all you have done to make our world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Rivez. We are privileged to be among many distinguished guests today. We would especially like to acknowledge Ambassador Fazli Çorman, the Deputy Permanent Representative from Turkey to the United Nations, and Mrs. Zeyset Kiziltan, who is the Turkish Deputy Consul General in New York City, as well as Mr. Serhat Aksin, who is the counselor at the Turkish Mission to the United Nations. We are pleased that there are 3 Turkish diplomats here to acknowledge outstanding country women from Turkey. The Foundation's prize program was established in 2000, and we now present 5 annual $500,000 prizes in the fields of cosmology, genetics, neuroscience, justice, and women's rights. Each prize recognizes achievements and discoveries that produce fundamental shifts in human culture and knowledge. Last month, the Cosmology Prize was presented to Saul Perlmutter and Brian Schmidt and their two teams, the Supernova Cosmology Project and the High Z Supernova Search Team, who independently discovered that the expansion of the universe is accelerating. Last week, the Justice Prize was shared by Justice Carmen Argibay from Argentina, Judge Carlos Cerda from Chile, and activist lawyer Monica Feria from Peru, who each defied tyranny in Latin America to help end intimidation and oppression. Later this month, Maynard Olson will receive the Genetics Prize for his role in founding the field of genomics. And in early November, the final prize will go to Shigetada Nakanishi, and he will receive the Neuroscience Prize for his pioneering research into the communication between nerve cells. I'd like to acknowledge the founding vision of my husband, Peter Gruber, in establishing these prizes. His spirit of generosity is a great source of inspiration for all of us at the Foundation. He's going to say a few words about the Women's Rights Prize.
I have to improvise because I haven't prepared anything. So you want me to talk about the Women's Rights Prize. Well, without women, we wouldn't be here. It's that simple. And they deserve a prize for putting up with us. So let me just say that I've been very fortunate in my selection of Patricia. And she's done a wonderful job, and I'm really just funding it, but it's something that without her inspiration and without her contribution, it wouldn't be what it is today. And it's growing, and it's something that is becoming accepted, and it's very important for men to understand the importance of women. And I think that they do understand, but at a very basic level, unfortunately. But having said that, I want to say that I'm very grateful to first of all, to Patricia. She's taken a thing to this like she was a professional all her life. And so it's really it's fantastic. But I want to thank you, and that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those somewhat embarrassing remarks. It's actually really wonderful. We award the Women's Rights Prize annually to honor courageous efforts from anywhere in the world to promote women's rights. Most recently, our awardees were last year Unión Nacional de Mujeres Guatemaltecas, Judge Cecilia Medina Quiroga, and Sweatshop Watch. Before that, the Women's League of Burma and the Shan Women's Action Network. Professor Sakina Yakubi and the Afghan Institute of Learning, and our very first prize went to Judge Navanitham Pillay and Pro-Femme Twese Hamwe. We are fortunate today to have two of our previous laureates with us, Professor Sakina Yakubi and Navi Pillay. Judge Pillay is here with us in the front row, and you will hear from them later. Now to the presentation of the 2007 prize. A distinguished panel of international advisors has guided the selection of this year's laureates. Its members are Linda Bash, Bernice Donald, Cecilia Medina Quiroga, Navanitham Pillay, Kavita Ramdas, Peter Rosenblum, and Zainab Salbi. My husband Peter and I deeply appreciate the knowledge, the dedication, and the seriousness that these advisors bring to the judging process. And now what we've been waiting for is the recipient of the 2007 Gruber Women's Rights Prize, Pinar Ilkarajan, and the two organizations she helped found, Women for Women's Human Rights, New Ways, and the Coalition for Sexual and Bodily Rights in Muslim Societies. Before I ask our recipient to step forward, I'd like to invite some members of the advisory board to speak briefly about the tremendous accomplishments of Pinar Ilkarajan and her organizations. Judge Navi Pillay, a member of the International Criminal Court, has served as the chair of the Women's Rights Advisory Board. She is also a former prize laureate herself, sharing the prize in its inaugural year for her work as a judge on the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Navi?
Thank you, Pat. It gives me great pleasure this afternoon to present to you the recipient of this year's Peter and Patricia Gruber Foundation Women's Rights Prize, Pina Ilkarian. Pina is from Istanbul, Turkey. She is a psychotherapist, a human rights activist, a writer, educator, and co-founder of these two important organizations, Women for Women's Human Rights, New Ways, and the Coalition for Sexual and Bodily Rights in Muslim Societies. Within a political environment not normally cited for advances in the status of women and their equal protection under law, Pina grasped the initiative and provided the leadership and strategies for securing radical and extensive reforms of Turkish law to bring equality to women in all areas. She grew up in the difficult years of the armed struggle of the 70s in Turkey. Even as a child, she acquired a reputation as a rebel or as a non-compromiser when it came to justice and values, and got into trouble with the teachers over that, I believe. She witnessed shootings of activists on her way to school, and she and her family were directly affected by pressure from the state and military authorities. During the military intervention of the 80s, many protesters were hanged and thousands were forced to flee Turkey. Pina was one of the activists who belonged to these opposition groups and had to seek refuge in Germany. However, Pina became painfully aware that all around her, ideas of liberation did not include equality for women, not only in the wider society, but also within the progressive leftist organizations within which she worked, as well as within her own much caring family. Patterns of patriarchy were strong, and she observed that social customs and norms that discriminated against women, that oppressed their freedoms, especially around issues of sexuality and leadership, were tolerated and were not challenged. Pina worked for many years in domestic violence shelters in Berlin and Turkey, and listening to the voices of thousands of women from many nationalities who came to these shelters brought home to her that violence against women is widespread and has global similarities across cultures, across countries, income, and educational levels. From her experience and her research, she gained deep insight into gender discrimination and inequality suffered by women all over the world. In early 1990, with the first sign of democracy reaching Turkey, Pina returned with her family from Germany to play a role in developments in her country. She felt that it was her duty to do so. Now, in those times, in 1994, there was not a single women's organization outside the cities of Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. Pina threw her energies into facilitating women's groups throughout Turkey. She and the Women's Rights for Human Rights set about building a peace network in the Kurdish region, which is in the southeastern Turkey. It was hazardous work, and Pina faced the threat of imprisonment of 3 years for her work there. In addition to initiating the Coalition for Sexual and Bodily Rights, Women for Women's Human Rights has, since its inception, led major legal reforms on gender equality, the widest and most sustainable human rights education program for women, and she spearheaded the rise of autonomous women's NGOs in the most disadvantaged parts of Turkey. The work of Pina and WWHR has brought about significant tangible improvement in the day-to-day treatment of women under Turkish law. The domestic violence law now provides for protection orders for women victims of spousal abuse, whereas previously there were no remedies apart from the women being forced to leave the abusive home. Until the passage of the Civil Code reforms of 2001, men held the status of heads of the family. They held the sole authority to make decisions for the family. Today, the law recognizes women as equal partners in marriage. In 2004, Pina led the struggle to change the penal code to protect women's sexual and bodily autonomy, including the criminalization of marital rape and sexual harassment in the workplace. In over 20 years of dedicated women's rights activism, Pina has boldly confronted topics long considered culturally off-limits for public discussion and has thereby increased knowledge of Muslim men and women regarding sexual and reproductive rights while advocating internationally for the advancement of those rights. By rising above controversy to build a solid base of support, she has created an international network to increase solidarity among women and girls in Muslim societies and to spread awareness of human rights and bodily integrity among all individuals within those societies, regardless of gender or sexual orientation. Pina is the editor of Women and Sexuality in Muslim Society, and I see your new book is out, Pina. I saw it in the front there, Sexuality in the Middle East, Contemporary Issues and Discourses, a collection of articles submitted by men and women from throughout the Muslim world. In 1998, she co-authored Human Rights Training Manual, which is being used in community centers across Turkey to increase women's knowledge and understanding of a whole range of individual rights, including sexual and reproductive rights. She continues to be a leading advocate of women's human rights internationally. The Peter and Patricia Gruber Foundation Women's Rights Prize is presented to an individual or group that has made significant contributions, often at great personal or professional risk, to furthering the rights of women and girls in any area and to advancing public awareness of the need for gender equality to achieve a just world. The selection panel on which I sit as chair determined that Pina İlkarayan amply fulfilled all these criteria and is most worthy of the prize. So on behalf of the panel, I congratulate Pina warmly for this richly deserved award. Before I leave, I'd like to call Dr. Linda Bash, my colleague on the panel. Linda is the president of the National Council for Research on Women, and she will speak about the two remarkable organizations that will share the prize with Pina El Karian. Thank you.